Mark, if we're looking back on an interesting year in Scottish rugby, can I ask you what's been important for Scottish rugby this year?
I think what's been important for me is the way we've managed to keep engaged with the supporters. Record attendances right the way through at Murrayfield and also over at Scotstoun. We've also had a transformational investment from a global partner, and we've also managed to put into practice really the initiatives that we talked about in December 2013.
Strategies it's an important word for any business, and the strategies within the annual report. In the first few pages we have academies, we have the women's game, we have coaching pathways. Are these the priorities for Scottish rugby over the next few years?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is that these initiatives have now become programmes because we've got the funding to deliver them. And that's the most important thing for me this year, is that what started out as concepts and ideas and strategies are now going to be implemented as plans that's going to drive rugby forward across the whole of the nation. And when we look at things like academies, which we so need to drive a conveyor belt of talent, homegrown talent, into the upper reaches of our game, it's really important that we manage to finance that. We have to recalibrate the women's game because they really have not been looked after in the way we perhaps should and could have looked after the women's game in the past. And when you look at what's happening in France in the Rugby World Cup, the extraordinary interest that's taking place over there, we must rectify that. And we're able to also give real seed corn funding to our clubs for the first time. Really drive through finance to where it matters, to help sustainability and to help clubs that are helping themselves. Really, really important for us.
In terms of the year that's just been, what's been the highlight? What's pleased you as Chief Executive?
What's pleased me is the way the board and council have been working together to deliver these programmes, and more importantly, the Commonwealth Games was a fantastic example of what happens when you capture general sporting fans' interest, not just rugby fans. And what I also want to focus on is the number of players that Vern was able to see in the summer tour. People underestimate just how much planning went into that from Scott Johnson and his team along with Vern, and it gave Vern an opportunity to see a whole raft of players in a very concentrated time span that he wouldn't normally have seen before. And the way we performed on that tour I also give me great pleasure too.
Rugby's about accepting the challenge or facing the challenge. So when you look at the year that's just gone, what's the challenge for Scottish rugby? What one issue do you see as a particular priority going forward?
Well, when you look at the Six Nations, we are judged really on the Six Nations each year, and we didn't perform well in this year's Six Nations. We had two games where we performed well below our expectations and didn't do ourselves justice in the England game and the Welsh game. We should have won the French game, which was one of those kind of moments where you think that's a moment that got away, and we won in the last minute against Italy in Rome. We've got to be more consistent, Jim. We've got to make sure that we're consistently working at the highest level of the game, and we need a wide and deep enough squad to be able to do that. And I think we're getting there, and I think the idea of Vern coming in completes that jigsaw we talked about when we first put our national plans together.
That's an emphasis for on the field of play. What's the emphasis? We've got the World Cup coming up next year as well. What's the emphasis off the field?
Well, off the field is I see the BT deal not as the beginning of something. I see that as the end of the first period of foundation laying that this board has done. We now have to build on that, drive more revenue through, and drive these programmes. Because all these programmes, whether it's in schools and youth, whether it's across the women's game, academies, coaching pathways, these are all going to put our game in great shape going forward. These are the foundations that we have not had really in the past, and we can build our game on these strong foundations. So now these are in place, I want to see them implemented, I want to see them delivered, and I want to see the fruits of our labours.
We have to finance the game in Scotland. Scottish Rugby has to help do that. So we've had investment from BT, which is fantastic for the game, but when it comes to the financial state of the game in Scotland, how are we at the moment?
Well, this is the BT investment is part of a long-term financial management plan that we've had. We're reducing debt now down to £10.2 million, which is the lowest it has been for a generation. We've had record turnover this year of over £43 million, which is £10 million higher than 4 years ago. And we've also got this deep investment in our game, which means that more kids can play rugby in state schools, more women can play rugby across the nation, we can get better players through into the top level of our games, and this is all because of the financial management strategy that we laid out when we first took over the SRU, and together the board and the council are making this happen.
What do the numbers mean for the clubs who are here today attending the AGM?
Well, the clubs will see a fantastic result today because we're going to launch a club sustainability fund, which we're going to invest £1.6 million into club facilities and general support over the next 4 years. But more importantly, we're going to invest £3 million this year in club rugby. And that's a record level. And that for me is a hugely important step for the union, and it's something I'm extremely proud of.